special Memorial Day edition of the Sons of the American Legion Radio Report on WVOX AM 1460 and heard around the world on WVOX.com. This is Jack McGuirk along with Ken Kraser bringing you this half hour of discussion of issues related to veterans and the active military. Now, here's Ken.
Hey, thanks, Jack. Good afternoon to everyone listening to Sons of the American Legion Radio on this solemn Memorial Day, and I want to thank my colleague for being here with me, Jack McGuirk. I didn't even have to call him. He's here. Yep. I knew he'd be here. We never miss a week if we can at all help it, and we hope everyone is having a good Memorial Day. We're going to have some, I was at the Westchester County Memorial Day ceremony on Friday up at Lansing Park in Katona. We'll have some of the remarks of County Executive George Latimer in the second half of the show. And also at the Memorial Day service this morning in White Plains that Mayor Tom Roach presided on. Wayne Bass doing a great job putting that together, the Commissioner of Recreational Services there in White Plains. I think just before we get to Jack, I see people that I think about on Memorial Day. My mother went to Pelham High School and was class of 38. And when we did research on the names Pelham reads on Memorial Day, we found out that 3 of her classmates were missing in action. 2 pilots and 1 sailor on a ship. And then our project at Arlington National Cemetery to update the chaplains' monuments, add 26 names. 3 of those names are chaplains who were lost in Korea and were taken prisoner along with many of the soldiers they were staying with in the early days of the Korean War, when it was really a very tough situation for the U.S. Army. The chaplains stayed with the wounded, and many were actually captured, and 3 died in captivity. Their remains are still missing, and we're hoping that they can be identified one day. But we're trying to get their names on the chaplains' monument at Arlington. We have 2 special veterans who were athletes who we talk about on the show quite a bit. Lieutenant Eugene Evans from Pelham, who was may have been Pelham High School's best athlete, and died as a lieutenant in the Korean War, leading a mission over enemy lines. And a good friend of his, Lieutenant Colonel Eli Page Howard, who they played together. They were both World War II era Marines, very end of the war. And then they went to Morgan State College, where they played on a championship football team. Both were in ROTC, and Lieutenant Colonel Howard died in Vietnam when his helicopter was shot down. We think of Chase Presnitzky, who's an Army football player. In the first year I was covering Army football, he was a defensive back. He had shifted from quarterback. And when he was commissioned and he served on his first mission overseas, he was killed when his Jeep was blown up in an IED incident. His family is now in Pelham. And from Army hockey, TK Thomas Kennedy, class of 2000, an officer rep for the team, died in service. The locker room at West Point for hockey is named for him. And from Army baseball, a couple of weeks ago, we heard the story of Major Stephen Wright, the Army baseball player, killed in 2005 in the Lone Survivor incident, where he was a helicopter pilot trying to rescue a group of special forces that included Michael Murphy. And unfortunately, his helicopter was shot down. So a couple of veterans who died in service that are kind of top of mind for me. And I will say, today we were out putting flags out at my uncle and my father's gravesite out at Gates of Heaven. We were trying to find Bob McGuirk's gravesite. And we're going to find it. I may have to go back there later today, but I always think of Bob McGuirk, what a veteran he was.
Absolutely. Every year, marching in the Memorial Day Parade in Pelham. Great to see him every year. And also, as you mentioned, there's a lot of ceremonies and stuff happening today and parades. And also, the 2021 Bethpage Air Show is actually happening as we speak right now. Just wrapping up over at Jones Beach on Long Island. They were going to have it over the weekend, but because of the unfortunate weather, it was postponed until today. That's actually the first time they've ever had it on Memorial Day. One of the big highlights of that air show is the famous Air Force Thunderbirds. So everybody at Jones Beach is probably getting a nice front row seat to that air show.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And start off with, another interesting Memorial Day story. Down in Washington, people visit Arlington National Cemetery and all the memorials. And one of them is in a little bit of trouble. That's the National World War II Memorial, which has begun to deteriorate. And in response, a bipartisan group of lawmakers has proposed legislation to help raise millions of dollars in needs of repair funds. The Greatest Generation Memorial Act, introduced by Senators Marco Rubio of Florida, Mike Rounds of South Dakota, and Gene Shaheen of New Hampshire, last week would allow the U.S. Treasury Department to make coins in commemoration of the memorial. If enacted, the bill would authorize proceeds from coin sales to go towards repairs and maintenance at the memorial and support commemorative educational programs. Now, that memorial has hosted over 70 million visitors since its dedication in 2004 and honors the 16 million veterans who served the United States Armed Forces during World War II and the more than 400,000 who died and the millions who supported the war effort stateside, according to the memorial's website.
Jack, did you find out what is deteriorating? I mean, the problem with that memorial, it's such a beautiful memorial, but it's very detailed.
Yeah, there are large cracks appearing in the granite columns, which resulted in a partial closure of the monument in 2019. The memorial, it's funded by the National Park Service, but the Park Service currently has a $12 billion capital construction backlog, so the legislation will support quick repairs on the monument, so hopefully these coin sales will raise enough money to make the repairs on this memorial.
Sure.
And COVID update, good news. For the first time in 14 months, the Veterans Affairs officials have reported no new COVID-related deaths at Department of Medical centers across the country. That was last Monday, the first day, no new deaths. The last day there was no reported VA COVID-related deaths was March 18th of 2020. Since the start of March 2020, more than 12,060 VA patients and 142 staffers have died from complications related to the virus. The VA death toll, which do not include all veterans in America, since many do not use Department hospitals at their primary Medicare, equate to about 27 individuals lost over each day, roughly.
That's incredible.
Past few months, actually, and a little good news here, it's slowed considerably. About 300 VA patients have died from COVID-related conditions in the last month. Now compare that to January, where about 2,400 patients died that month. And the vaccine numbers are slowly going up. Department of Veterans Affairs staff have administered more than 6 million vaccines to veterans and their relatives, the caregivers, and federal workers in the last 6 months. About 3 million individuals are fully vaccinated, getting both doses of the 2-shot regimen or receiving the single-shot regimen. But the total has decreased significantly, down from a peak of 50,000 vaccinations a day in early spring to less than 10,000 a day now. And currently, as far as active cases go, the department is still dealing with more than 2,600 cases, active cases spread over 138 medical sites. But it's a little bit of good news. The numbers down, deaths down significantly, and vaccines are going up. Although the number of vaccinations has gone down, maybe because there's so many people have gotten vaccinated that the demand isn't there.
Well, that's good news that the number of fatalities from COVID is basically been zero for the last couple of weeks, last 2 weeks.
Yep, and in the Middle East, the Navy is going to be sending the aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan to the Middle East to support the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. According to a report, the Reagan will move from the Asia-Pacific region to the U.S. Fifth Fleet and is expected to remain at the U.S. Central Command's region for up to 4 months. It's actually currently in Japan, so it held a long trip to the Middle East. The move was made actually for the request of Marine General Frank McKenzie, commander of CENTCOM, who asked for a carrier to take over for the aircraft carrier Dwight Eisenhower, which is currently deployed in the region. But the Eisenhower is expected to depart that area in July and arrive at Norfolk in Virginia. In March, the Navy announced, back in March, had announced that the IAC was going to, Spirit Carrier Group had started conducting flight operations against the Islamic State in the Middle East, but it's heading back to Norfolk, and the Ronald Reagan is going to be taking over there.
Yeah, it's amazingly hard to keep one aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf, which seems to be a necessity. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully the withdrawal from Afghanistan goes smoothly and that the Afghan government can maintain itself, but it's going to be a real challenge. But it just shows the importance of having an aircraft carrier at key strategic points in the world, such as the Persian Gulf. The other key point is really in the Western Pacific.
Absolutely. The other thing we're keeping an eye on in the Middle East is what's happening with Israel and Palestine. And Egypt and Israel held high-level talks in both countries to shore up, this past weekend, to shore up the fragile truce between Israel and the Hamas militant group and rebuild the Gaza Strip after an 11-day war that left parts of the seaside enclave in ruins with rockets firing both sides. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Sukri received Israeli counterpart Gabi Ashkenazi to discuss that ceasefire. Now, part of the agreement was that Israel is trying to get the remains of 2 Israeli soldiers killed in 2014 war, and 2 civilians were being held there. But we'll have to keep an eye on that. You've been listening to the Sons of the American Legion Radio Report on WVOX AM 1460 and heard around the world on WVOX.com. We'll be right back after this brief Fox News break, so stay tuned.